If everyone would sit down, please, we'll start. There's some more seats up here in the front. If people would please sit down, we will start. Not on? I don't think so. It is? Okay. There's still a couple more seats up here and some over there if somebody needs to sit down. Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Sarah Voss. I'm a retired Unitarian Universalist minister affiliated with this church. Our settled minister, Reverend Sherry Woodbury, had a pre-scheduled out-of-town conflict for today, but sends her warmest regards to Janet's family and her sincere sympathy to everyone here for the substantial empty space Janet's death makes in our lives and our church community. Reverend Sherry invited me to officiate today in her absence, and believe me, it is my pleasure and my honor to facilitate this time when we must say a very official, if somewhat difficult, goodbye to Janet. I want to begin by offering all of you in this room a very heartfelt welcome I assure you that your presence here today is a blessing and a comfort for the family of Janet West. Thank you all for being here. As my colleague Scott W. Alexander once put it, we have come together to give thanks that we knew this caring person, to express our gratitude for the days and years we were able to share with her. We are here to remember and memorialize an amazing, intelligent, funny, kind, dedicated life. By remembering the best of this person, by recalling some of her finest qualities, by honoring the principles, values, and dreams which guided her life, some of Janet's enduring nobility flows into us, that we ourselves might be more noble in the days ahead. We begin this process of memorializing or memorizing with a silent kind of memory, or one that is explicitly visual. No one entering this world can ever escape sadness. Each in turn must bear burdens, though he or she be rich or poor, and in turn bid loved ones farewell as they set out upon life's ventures. Each one must suffer that sad farewell when loved ones embark on that last voyage, and each in turn must take that final voyage. But for all those who make this life a pledge to the Spirit, there comes the assurance of a victory that shall redeem life's pain. Now, Janet's three youngest children, or at least some of them, Jack, Johnny, and Nate, will provide light for our ceremony, an act which is metaphorically true of grandchildren the world over. Not all of her grandchildren are able to join us today, so those who are present will also represent the others. Will the grandchildren of Janet please come forward now and light the chalice? And wait just a moment while we say our words for the lighting. Though our spirit be but the feeble glow of a single flame, for the one who keeps it burning brightly to the end and bravely to the end, death is not defeat. We light our chalice today to honor the life and living of Janet West. We have gathered today in this beautiful setting to acknowledge the passing of Janet West, whom we have known and loved. When someone we care for dies, especially as in this case after a long and fulfilling life, family and friends gather with sorrow in their hearts. At times when we must face death and loss, we need one another's company for understanding and support. Just to be together, to look into one another's faces, takes away some of our loneliness and draws our hearts together in the healing which we can offer one another. At such times, the various faiths that sustain us separately come together in a harmony that acts across all creeds and assures us of the permanence of human goodness and hope. We are here for all these things, but our first spiritual task is to face full and unafraid the reality of this death and the grief and loss that we feel. Janet West was a dearly beloved part of our community. She had a long reign here, and I call it a reign because she governed like a queen and cared like a dedicated doctor. She was our church board president at least once during her almost 36 years tenure as a church member here. She joined on 9/20/1987. And she was also a member of the Sarah Joslin Society. She was active in the Women's Alliance team and the Sister Church team, plus she was the leader of the Partner Church team for many years. She cared for others in ways too many to count, but I invite you to share some of them in our open talk time a little later. One of the things Janet was most known for here was her work in bringing to its prime the connection we built with our partner church in the village, Unitarian village in Romania called Furtos Martanos, and I'm not sure I said that right. Close enough? Yeah. Since the beginning of this intercontinental relationship in 1992, she encouraged us to aid this long-lived and often struggling church whose people, not so very long ago, bore the hardship of a rigid communist regime. Even earlier, the church was a part of our Unitarian heritage, which began in the 1500s under a Unitarian king in what was then called Transylvania. We here at Omaha's UU Church helped this overseas church in fundamental ways, both financial and otherwise. Janet made much of that happen. She led groups of interested members and friends of our church across the water and to visit, and then later helped bring the minister and various others back across those same waters to become acquainted with their Omaha counterparts. Her dedication to this joint relationship was ardent, and her mark in its development will be long, long remembered. I knew Janet mostly because of our church. I knew her as a clever, thoughtful, sometimes brilliant, often humorous woman who was committed to all kinds of social justice and who had amazingly diverse interests and who often thought outside the box. It is appropriate, I believe, that this, our formal celebration of her life, also be a little outside the traditional models for funerals and memorial services. In this spirit, we shall spend most of our time together today sharing memories and reflections that honor and respect this rare woman, and that also help us to publicly paint a picture of her, which will linger in our hearts. Again, let me mention how good it is that each of you is here to help us with this work. Sorry about that. Memories are the way in which we keep her vitality with us. They live in us and grow as we share them. Here's a short memory of mine. A while after she suffered her first stroke, Janet was residing at Brighton Gardens, which is a care facility close to my own home. On nice days, I could walk there and sometimes did. Janet wanted me to come. She asked me to come She liked her residence, although she didn't like being confined to a wheelchair. But she never let that stop her. Turns out she was not satisfied with the traditional Sunday church services that the home provided. "Everyone's Catholic here," she said. Janet wanted a UU presence. As it turned out, I couldn't really provide her with that sort of thing in any formal way. But we had some wonderful conversations. I suspect that if she'd had more time there, she'd have eventually found a way to make that UU presence official. That was so Janet. Janet Mason West was born on July 7th, 1940, in New York City to Willard and Agnes Mason, and died here in Omaha at age 82 plus. She and her first husband raised 5 children and have 14 grand and step-grandchildren. She spent early time on Long Island, which she loved, and that is where her ashes will ultimately find a home. At this point in time, we have arranged for some family members and one friend to come up here to share some memories about Janet, and I will mention them in the order that they're coming up, and then let them come up just one after the other so that it will work. First, there will be Vivi Scandone, Janet's sister, then Dan Sullivan, a friend and colleague, and then Sarita Lohani, one of the foreign students who will speak, and finally, Laisha Harris, who is one of Janet's granddaughters, I think the oldest one, maybe. She will offer a eulogy. So we'll begin now with Vivi.
Hello. I am the 4th child. When I was born, Janet was 5.5, Willard was nearly 7, and Franklin was 3.5. I'm going to speak first for my big brother Franklin, who sadly cannot be here today. He and his wife really wanted to be here, Christina, but they were not able to travel. So first, we will hear from Franklin. In 1943, the family lived in the village of Hempstead. Janet once recalled that Willard, then aged 5, and she, then aged 3 years, disappeared from the house. Naturally, Mom and Dad panicked. The kids were found watching the planes at a nearby airport, Roosevelt Field, which is now a shopping mall. Willard and Janet thought nothing of it. They just went for a walk to see the airplanes. A few years later, when the Mason family moved to Farmingdale, New York, on Long Island, our house was perhaps 100 yards from the railroad tracks. In those days, the locomotives were coal-fired. Thus, large amounts of soot and ash poured from the smokestacks of the locomotives as they went along. One day, we were having a picnic in the backyard with our father's mother when a train came by. Soot and ash poured out of the smokestack. We all knew the drill. We grabbed sheets, which were at the ready, and covered the food. When the train had gone by and the soot and ash had all settled, we uncovered the food and continued our picnic. Living next to the railroad tracks had more advantages than disadvantages. For example, Willard and Janet and I used to walk along the railroad tracks frequently. There was a balsa wood factory several miles from our home along the tracks. We used to walk to that factory fairly often to get scrap balsa wood from the factory yard. Willard had a World War II Army canteen that we always took with us. I'm sure I would have been horrified if my children had routinely walked on railroad tracks, but for the 3 of us, it was a matter of course. Willard and Janet were very close. Unfortunately, they would sometimes exclude me from their games. When we lived in Farmingdale, they had a secret fort somewhere in the sumac forest. Naturally, I wanted to be included in the fort, so I constantly pestered them to tell me where the fort was. Finally, they relented, or said they did, and showed me where the fort was. The fort was a somewhat large log in a small clearing in the sumac trees. When we arrived at the fort, we all sat on the log. I was so excited to finally be with them in the fort that I started rocking back and forth on the log, which caused the log to roll. Unbeknownst to us, the log contained a beehive. The rocking motion brought the bees out to attack us. We ran home as quickly as we could with the bees swarming around us. Each of us was stung many, many times all around our bodies and also on our ears and in our mouths because we were screaming. Fortunately, our mother was outside when we arrived home. The first thing she did was to cover the perambulator to protect Vivi, that's me, who was a baby inside it. The second thing our mother did was to get a broom and started hitting us, trying to chase the bees away. That didn't work. So finally, our mother got the hose and started squirting us. That worked, but by then we were completely covered with bee stings. I never did find out if that log in the clearing was the real fort or not. So thank you, Franklin, for those tales of adventure. Now for my own recollections. When I was nearly 2 and Janet was 7.5, the family moved to Westport, Connecticut, where we lived until all of us except baby brother James were grown and on our own. David, now deceased, was born shortly after we moved there. A year later, Willard, whom Janet adored, as you know from Franklin's stories, was killed by a car 1 month short of his 10th birthday. To make matters worse, our mother went into a sanitarium and neighbors helped our father take care of us. At 8 years of age, Janet was de facto head of the house. I have often wondered how Janet survived this tragedy and how it shaped her over the rest of her life. 4 years later, our baby brother James was born. Janet loved him dearly and became his second mother. I remember her dressing him up and playing with his long curls, sometimes putting them into little pigtails. We all loved him very much and still do. When James was in junior high school and was too much for our infirm mother to take care of, he lived with Janet and her family. He talks of that time fondly and remembers Janet and Mike encouraging him to play football and other sports, and that Mike introduced him to weightlifting. In Janet's early years, she took tap dancing lessons, horseback riding lessons, and violin lessons. Her violin teacher was a bit of a perfectionist and would harass her during her lessons to the point that she once threw her violin at him. Nevertheless, she played the violin from the age of 7 until she graduated from high school. Our mother played some piano and loved music, so all of us kids played instruments. When Janet was in high school, she tried baritone horn and trombone, but her arms were too short for 7th position. And she finally settled on French horn, which she played through her college years. Janet influenced me to take up the violin and later the viola, which I played through college, and the French horn, which I still play to this day. You all know that Janet loved to travel all over the world. But where did this wanderlust come from? Our mother, who passed it on to both Janet and me. We started going camping when Janet was 15 and Franklin was 13. They had responsibility for packing tents, sleeping bags, cook stoves, and everything else on the rack of our station wagon. First, a 1949 Pontiac Woody our aunt had given us. You remember Woodies, right? Some of you, anyway. And then the brand new 1956 red and white Pontiac with a 6-foot roof rack. On one of our trips out west, Janet's horseback riding lessons came in handy when we rented horses in Wyoming and rode the wilderness trails. One day she was holding James in front of her on the saddle with the reins wrapped around her finger. The horse reared, breaking her finger. Believe me, until you've driven or ridden on a mountain road in the dark to the hospital to get your sister's finger set, you haven't lived. Following in Mom's footsteps, Janet and I both took our children, and Janet her grandchildren as well, on camping trips, making some of our favorite memories. Closer to home, Janet loved New York City and came about once a year, where I live, often bringing her children or grandchildren. We had many adventures: museums, ball games, Central Park, and concerts. At one of these, my husband was performing with an orchestra on a boat. One of the featured pieces was the Moldau, about the river in the Czech Republic. Just as the music was portraying the water, another boat's wake made our boat rock. Janet, who had boated on the Moldau, had a hard time suppressing her laughter. It's not easy to sum up Janet. She was a daughter, a sister, a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, and an aunt. She loved teaching and was passionate about politics. She greatly enjoyed traveling and meeting people in their own settings. She also loved the foreign students who attended UNO and often lived with her family. She was highly opinionated and outspoken. Janet and I often disagreed, but when we had a crisis or a big decision to make, we called each other first. Her wide circle of family, friends, and acquaintances loved and admired her. She will be missed by them all. Thank you.
I see quite a few members of the UNO community in the audience. I think they could tell you a lot about those old times, and they could probably regale you all afternoon with hilarious stories of what a strange place that could be at times and the wonderful things that happened there. Don't worry, I'm not going to name any names, but corner them later and they'll get some information for you. I won't spend a great deal of time talking about Janet's scholarship and her abilities as a teacher, but she was really special. I do want to tell you something that maybe many people may not understand, and that was her profound effect on the University of Nebraska system. In 1960, the University of Omaha was, I believe, the only city-sponsored university in the country, and once in a while it was called, jokingly, West Dodge High. Actually, it occasionally deserved that name. The university was run by a didactic president who unilaterally hired and fired faculty and custodians alike. He hired every custodian, every faculty member personally. If he liked an employee, the employee might get a Christmas bonus. If he didn't like you, well, you might be tenured, but that might not keep it going. You could be fired for a little cross. You might not get a salary raise for decades. And you could do something very easily to annoy that particular individual. One faculty member who did so found his office dismantled and his desk moved out in the hallway. Bob Keppel, a member of this church and also a great teacher, decided to grow a beard. He was called into the president's office and admonished and suggested that he really should get rid of that beard, and Bob just acted as though he couldn't imagine what that was about. But that was the kind of climate we lived in back then. Now, in the 1960s, late 1960s, a new breed of teachers came to campus. They were experienced in academia at respected universities, more experienced than the previous instructors, and highly professional. Janet West was an outstanding educator and member of the economics department at the University of Nebraska from 1967 to 2012. And during much of that time, she and her family were very active here at the Unitarian Church. I knew her here and also as a colleague at UNO. When the University of Omaha merged with the University of Nebraska system, we expected some big changes, and we did get some. But it seemed to us that the university system at Lincoln was running the show and that they treated us as kind of an unruly stepchild. This resulted in the UNO faculty organizing and voting 134 to 10 to form a collective bargaining unit with the American Association of University Professors. And Janet knew how that kind of stuff worked. Janet, with her background in budgeting, benefits, and negotiating strategies, really set us on the right road. She initiated a contact with the National AAUP. They provided coaches and advice to our negotiating team. Now, the Regents had their own negotiator, a law firm, well-respected in Lincoln still today, and one that they had really been working with for many, many decades. And they figured that these guys could really handle these hicks from Omaha. It happened that the AAUP provided with coaches and with legal advice, and we were able to win some terrific negotiating contracts. 8%, 9%, 6.5%. Some of these after legal opinions from a special master. But that also provided us with enhanced academic freedom and benefits. And in my opinion, the Regents were so concerned that other academic units would also unionize, also engage in collective bargaining, that they gave them the same benefits that we were getting. They say a rising tide lifts all boats, and I think that was the case here. It made the University of Nebraska system throughout a much better system and certainly enhanced education at UNO. All these and other enhancements of higher education in Nebraska came partly as a result of Janet West's knowledge and determination. I believe it's in part Janet's efforts that have made the University of Nebraska system the quality institution it is today. I'm proud to count her as a colleague and a friend.
Well, my memory to Janet West, it goes long back, 42 years ago. When I first came to Omaha, I was determined to stay with American family. So because my father had told me that, you make sure you stay with American family, and that time, I think Tom Gutierrez, Mr. Gutierrez was there in the director in the International Student Program. And so there was some staff named Pauline Campbell. And so they probably, through them, Janet found out that, they were looking for a foreign student, is looking for a family. And when I first came to Omaha, it was, it was really crazy. I was in a YMCA, and I felt like if I was in YMCA, if I die, nobody will know that I am here in the hotel. So came down 4 o'clock in the morning, and I just took a quarter and put some coffee, and everything kept coming. Wow, this is magical here. So I kept on drinking 8 cups of coffee that night. So anyway, that was, I've just first time been out of the Nepal. So Janet, my first encounter with Janet was in I think it was August 28 or 29th, 1979. She came to pick me up, came to my room, and she said, okay, Sarita, why don't we go to my place and you see the room? And I said, no, I don't need to see the room. I just want to get out of here. So she said, no, you need to see the room first if you like it or not. I will like it. And so she insisted that I need to see the room. So she drove me there. And because I had already knew I was going to stay there, because whether I like it or not, I want to get out of the YMCA. So she showed me the room, and I said, yeah, it's great, So then she drove back to YMCA to pick up all my stuff and came to the room, and that was the big relief. Oh my God, I finally found a family to live with. And that time, one of the scariest part is living that there was a big dog called Smiley. So it was sitting in front of the front door, and I was scared. And Mike Sr., oh, don't worry about it. He won't do anything. So anyway, finally I stayed. It has, well, you have to write everything. So anyway. So I have known Janet for 42 years, and I lived with West family for a long time, and a lot of parties, cooking together, getting groceries. Janet even had me put a grocery account in some nearby grocery store, Walners. So I didn't have to pay every time I go, so I just get my grocery and come back, and once a month I would pay. And anyway, and Janet also started me to come to this church, so I started coming with every Sunday with Janet in Unitarian Church, which I really enjoyed it. As a matter of fact, I was married here. I came to this church after 30 years today. So we went out, did things together, lived, I felt practically like when I was there, with my parents. I came to West family with Mike and Janet. It's like a kind of, pseudo parental figure, sort of, So even when I go out, there is Mike Jr. used to say, Mom, how come she gets to get out and we can't? So I was in graduate school that time, so she was. And so it was, what I'm trying to say is like we have a lot of tussle, arguments, but like a normal family did. That's what I lived in their house. And I cannot go without sharing this story. It's more relates, when I came to Mike and Janet's house, next day in the morning, Mike Sr. was making a waffle. And he asked me, do you want some waffle? And I said, yes. So I ate waffle, and I was, this is great. So I need to go get a waffle. So I went to Warner's, and by the time I get to the store, I forgot the pronunciation of waffle, and that waffle turned into awful. So I asked the guy, hey, do you have some awful? I said, what do you mean awful? And I said, well, awful, I had a breakfast there. You didn't like your breakfast? I said, no, I had a great breakfast. If you had a great breakfast, why are you saying awful? And I said, well, it was awful, it was good. So anyway, because in Nepal, I'm sure we had a similar kind of food, but I didn't know the name. And so then there was a lady standing there, and she said, can you come with me? And she took me to the breakfast aisle, and she said, show me the picture here. And I said, oh, that's awful. And I said, no, that's not awful, it's waffle. So from, it just, I was just kind of kindness from them, So, I'm sorry, I have to keep on getting this darn phone. So Janet and I, we went to school. When she had an evening class, she would take me because I was going to school. I was getting a master's in education. So she took me to school and she waited for me to pick me up. And I, there are a lot of Thanksgiving party, Christmas party. Some of the foreign students, all my friends, they came, they spent night there. I don't think that any of my friends there hadn't spent night in their house. So it was really, I stayed with them at least 5 years. So with my experience with Janet will not be completed without including Big Mike. So, on the process, because it's kind of like they both were very, very kind to me, and Mike, it is so good to see him here. So Mike would, help me to school, work, and if I need somewhere to go, he will also take me. And my Nepali daughter, he used to call me, and so it was just really good. So I just wanted to include Mike because, my experience and my relationship with Janet will not complete it without acknowledging him. So sorry about and another huge contribution to my Janet is like towards the international students. So she was always there for them, providing a lot of resources, like arranging a place or even offering her own home, whatever they need, helping them out. And, one of the foreign students, her name is, Samjana. I don't know you guys know or not, Mike and Jamie, I don't know. Her name is Samjana, who stayed for 2 years. And she said that, when I told about Janet, she was very sorry. And she said she was so kind, and she even invited her friends for Thanksgiving dinners and Christmas time. And so she was just really sad about Janet's demise. She told me about so Samjana, the lady name is Samjana, who stayed in my room. I call that my room, that were on the top floor, for 2 years. Yeah, and Janet loved traveling, especially Eastern European countries, Southeast Asia. She loved, she loved about learning different cultures and trying different food. It's kind of was her passion. However, Janet loved my chicken curry. So of course I'm being biased here. She went to Nepal and stayed with my family and went to different part of Nepal. Janet also came to my nephew's wedding in Oklahoma with Kylie, where Kylie danced. Also, she came to my niece's place in Chicago. She was like a part of the family, just being there. So anyway, it was wonderful, she came to Seattle in 2015 to see me. We went to different island. We had so much fun. We become, and initially I was like a kind of like a parental figure, but we became more like a best friend. And it was really wonderful that though she's not with us, I will always treasure my beautiful memory of her. So I'm so grateful knowing her and grateful to whole West family. Thank you.
In 1940, she came to us as Janet Thompson Mason. I finally learned how to say Ossining, Ossining. We had a whole conversation about how to actually pronounce where she was from. And I finally got it, Ossining. That's where she was born. And we heard about her siblings. We'd heard about her family. She married Mike in 1962. Her grandpa Mike, Uncle Mike, they moved to Detroit. And that's when she started teaching at a Lutheran school. She got her bachelor's degree from Michigan State, I think, or master's. She got her master's degree at Michigan State. But we had a lot in common because she talked about how she jumped around from major to major, math, chemistry, eventually landing in history. She had a lot of interests. And when the family relocated to Omaha for Grandpa Mike's job, she said, teaching would be fun. She taught a little while when they were in Michigan. She was a teacher's assistant, but she didn't really know about how to teach adults. However, there was an opportunity at UNO. She took that opportunity and made such a tremendous impact. She helped me write this because there was an interview that she gave in 2004, and she talked about how before the UNO stadium got really big, she would take Mike and Jamie to the grassy bank on the west side, and they'd let you run around and wreak havoc during the games because they were just a poor young parents who didn't have a babysitter but wanted to bring their kids into a different life. Later on in the later 1960s, she began to welcome students from all over the world to 5223 Jones Street. I have no idea what I would smell when I would wake up in the morning. It was good. I couldn't pronounce it half the time, but there were always different people in different cultures to dive into at that home. There were notable toga parties, no-name parties. My parents are gone, so let's just party. And that was before she started to make a choice. In 1971, they expanded the family and welcomed in Uncle David. And then shortly after, she was given tenure at UNO. So at this time, she'd been in Omaha for 10 years. And she started to create different programs and opportunities, as Dan spoke about. There was a VISTA program where you would take community service hours in Omaha in different areas, and you could get in exchange for course credit, something that she believed would help give students realistic experience into what it was like to be in the workforce. They also started a freshman year experience, giving students tools that they would need to succeed academically and help them find their true interests. She was also president of UNO AAUP, which helped the faculty maintain their voice at the university, helping with their budgets and resources and numbers. In 1974, they adopted my mother, Carol West. And I have to think in that moment, adopting brown children in the 70s couldn't have been an easy assignment, but she did. She wanted to use her tools and resources to share share what she had, not only with the family that she made, but the family that she chose. I'd like to think that everybody who she's been connected with, whether family or students, she actively chose to love us. And that's what makes me miss her so much. So she was a mom. And then in 1990, she became my grandmother. When I look at the pictures, I don't see her because she was always behind the camera, capturing moments, capturing the beauty of things that we wouldn't always see. I know that when I came, she wasn't really expecting me because she already had a house full of kids. And while I throw that in there, George showed up somehow. We don't know when he came into the family, but he showed up. And she probably thought it would be too much having 5 kids at that house, in addition with all of the students that she welcomed. But she made the decision to love me in a tremendous way. And I'm glad to know that at least my adventures, even though they felt like they start with me, they started with her mother. And I'm glad to be able to have that experience because it has changed my life so much. We would go camping. And it wasn't always just about, being with the family. She had a really strong relationship with her students. So after, about around 2000, she started taking UNO students to Ireland for spring break to give people who couldn't otherwise be able to experience studying abroad, to give them that opportunity. There was a value in allowing those people the chance to learn from international marketing teams like Intel, Guinness, Jameson. I thought she just liked to drink. I didn't know that it was that it had some meaning to it. She was very full of life. She was very adventurous, and her routine, I remember, because I lived with her a lot when I was either growing up or when I was late teen, early 20s. I was at 5223. And she'd wake up at about 5 or 6 o'clock, turn on NPR, because that was her alarm. She would go to the kitchen, make coffee, probably walk Abby around the block. She'd wake me up, kiss me on the forehead, and I would cringe because I didn't like the smell of coffee. I would take a shower. She would take a shower. I'd come downstairs. I'd have breakfast. She'd walk me to the corner of Leavenworth so I could go to Washington Elementary. When I was sick, she'd take me with her to school. I would play teacher while she was grading papers. I wasted so much paper of the copy machine making quizzes that I wasn't actually going to give anyone. And as a kid, even as a young adult, she was my partner in crime. She was Batman and I was Robin. And I admire her so much. And I didn't realize how much I had internalized from her until I started teaching. And I realized that the same passion that she had with her kids, I could transfer with mine. And I think it was my second year of teaching. I woke up one morning and I was like, what's gonna wake me up? Coffee. I didn't like coffee, But like grandma, I was willing to try anything once. I tried coffee. Now I drink it every day. She fostered every creative bone in my body. Ballet, tap, dance, theater, singing, artwork. When I heard she passed, I painted for 6 days in silence. Because in my head, I could hear her over my shoulder. Wow, you are such a great artist. I'm so proud of you. We would travel, and she would always capture beautiful pieces, or she'd hang a giant flower in the kitchen. We all saw a vagina flower, but she loved Georgia O'Keeffe. She saw things beyond what was on the surface. And as I got older, being a brown woman in America, I realized that the world didn't see me the way she saw me. Actually, the first, so she has brown children, black and brown children, right? Second grade, first day of school, this is exactly what she did to my hair. I didn't like it at first. I was teased. I went to Dundee. They made fun of me. I came home and she was like, "What's wrong?" They didn't like my hair. They made fun of me. Well, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. And now I can wear this and be confident and proud of who I am. Because she didn't see us the way everybody else saw us. And if she wasn't deep in the arts, she was deep in a book. She always had books. Everyone had books. And at some point, I remember writing books. And she would read them enthusiastically and share them with her neighbors like Luena. And she allowed me to be myself. I didn't understand it at the time, but I knew that what she was doing was trying to lay the foundation of what it is to be a good person, to love someone unconditionally, and to be there. She exposed me to the world. She loved history, I loved history, and we would sit and talk about injustices. I didn't understand numbers. She didn't understand race. But we talked about it, tried to really understand. And at some point, different started to become interesting. Knowing more started to become interesting. I thoroughly enjoyed Flintstone Park, Mount Rushmore. And if she wasn't camping with us in the backyard or taking us to Elmwood Park, she was in Singapore, Malaysia, Poland, Bulgaria, Turkey, China. This is just a fraction of the places, by the way. Canada, Peru, Colombia, Mexico, Australia. I remember one time we were going through her cabinet in the kitchen. She had coca leaves. It's like, Grandma. You couldn't do anything with them. They were the real, like, just authentic coca leaves, but it was just a token. Cuban cigars, she liked those. She'd bring back African sculptures from Kenya or French artwork. She was very cultured, very cultured. She taught me how to be strong. She taught me to be unapologetically myself. But most importantly, she taught me love. A worldly love, a generous love. She had a refrigerator of reminders of donations to make because she was a giver. She gave when she didn't particularly want to in that initial moment, but she did it anyway. She was practical also. I remember in college when she was helping me with my budgeting, she wouldn't entertain the conversation unless I could tell her where the money was going. Economics background and all that. She wanted to know that what she was investing in was paying off. She wanted to have her hand in something that would positively impact the world. She had her hands on so many lives and brought forth so many other dimensions of the people that she loved because she was there for her friends, her colleagues, and her family. She was always busy. She would have Friday dinners with Jan, she'd have lunch with Bob, or she'd have meetings with the econ department, or there'd be sports games, or there'd be recitals or plays. She would come to church. I came here. And it was interesting when I would start to come to this church versus my mom's church. Here was very chill. It was very calm. There are great cookies downstairs. And then I'd go to church with my mom. People be crying everywhere, hollering. The music was good, but it was a different setting, and we didn't really get snacks. But I'd ask her if she believed in the same God that my mom believed in, and she'd firmly respond, "Oh, no. Jesus was a good guy, but I don't believe in the magical part of everything." And I think it's funny because as I think back about all of the things that she's done and accomplished over her life, she actively made the choice to be a good person. She may have felt, I don't think I ever really saw her mad. I'd see her get frustrated and I'd see her have a moment, but she didn't really get mad. And if she did, she didn't get mad to me. So I just, but she appeared to be as if she genuinely wanted to give me, my siblings, my family a good life. And because of that, I don't really think that she, she transitioned in a different type of place. And I'm not saying that she's sitting in a cloud in heaven, because she probably doesn't think there is one. However, if there is, I'm pretty sure her and angels are having a good laugh right now. But I know that her life will continue. And I saw it all coming full circle when I was listening to Vivi, because I realized that her family exposed her to things, she exposed me to things, and I've internalized those things, even though I don't try. I wake up in the morning and I drink coffee. I listen to NPR on the way to work. I was a teacher for a while and I absolutely loved it. And I know she was so elated when I told her that I got into law school. The second time I made Dean's List, I called her. And I was like, "Grandma, I've made the Dean's List twice. I'm going to graduate with honors." And she was like, "Wow, you're so smart. I knew you were smart, but dang." And I don't know if it was her or the universe, but something knew that I needed her to stay for me to get through the bar exam. And she did. Because she's always there for you when you need her the most. She needed to see me get closer to the woman that she had invested in. And I'd like to think that her legacy is going to be eternal because of all the lessons, all of the love and the patience and the generosity that she gave to us, which we will pass along to to our grandchildren. I love you, Mima.
Oh, thank you all for those wonderful words and memories, as only those of you who spoke could share those particular memories. The family has requested a short period of time, 15, 20 minutes maybe. I know it's a little longer, but we'd like to open this up for people to come forward and speak into the mic and tell who you are and share a memory, if you can, about Janet. That's fine.
Hi there. I'm Jennifer Forbes Bailey, former member of this congregation, but I did not meet Janet in the sanctuary. I met Janet in the common room. What I remember, and I think it might have been Jamie, could have been Carol, had a giant Flemish rabbit. The rabbit was, which child was that? It was you. Such a great memory. The child was, I believe, smaller than the rabbit. She had to carry the rabbit around the common room like this. And I thought, I am in exactly the right place. First of all, that a rabbit would be so welcome at a place of worship. I guess I also want to just do a tip of the hat to Janet West for opening the door for many, many students in Omaha to finishing a 4-year degree from the UNO College of Business. She worked tirelessly to get the 2+2 students finished 2 years at Metro. They transferred to UNO, guaranteed that those good courses would exactly fit our plan, and with 2 more years to go on. I would love to see an economic study of how that has impacted UNO. And I guess the very last thing I want to say, and not take much more time, is that I was extremely fortunate to be Janet West's roommate twice in Ireland. And we thought we referred to each other as best roomies for the rest of our time. So thank you very much.
My name is Mark Wohar. I'm a faculty member in the economics department. I came to the economics department in 1988, which is where I met Janet. And over the years, Janet and I became very, very close friends. She made an impact, as all of us know, on many, many people. We don't have too much time, so there's 2 things I remember most about Janet. She had such a big heart. She always gave so much to so many people, including myself, and I don't have time to tell you how much and how many times she helped me. The other thing that was so much of a joy was that about every other Friday, she would come over to my apartment and we would share a bottle of wine and talk about political and economic issues. And it was really fun because her and I were at different ends of the spectrum in terms of politics, but we were so close. And I will miss her greatly, but I know that she will live on in all of us with her memories and all the things and the impacts that she had on people.
My name is Bill Pratt. I work closely with Janet in collective bargaining for a couple of decades. Full of life, that is perhaps the best description one could make of Janet. On the other hand, she was so energetic. She was just a bundle of energy. And then she also had a keen sense of tactics and strategy. It was a wonderful thing to have the opportunity to work with her. I know at one time in the bargaining, we had a lull in the bargaining, and we sat there together, and she said, "We just turned down $1 million raise for the faculty because we wanted more." There was another time when I was talking with her on the phone, and it was a Sunday morning. We were talking about tactics, and she said, "You don't eat ice cream for breakfast." That was directed to someone other than me. I think the collective bargaining effort at UNO was extremely helpful for the faculty. Janet was in the middle of it for years. You know, one time I was at some function in Lincoln, and I ran into Bruce Wright, who was the attorney that the university used in collective bargaining matters. And we hated his guts. There was no doubt about it. He was one of the worst human beings we ever dealt with. Well, at this occasion, collective bargaining was now well established at UNO. And this was a dinner for a retiring administrator. And there were drinks around, and I went over to talk with Bruce. He wasn't the bête noir that he had been. He put his arm around me, and he said, "If you ever tell anybody this, I'll deny it. But collective bargaining was good for the university." Janet was a wonderful person, a wonderful colleague, and the faculty and the whole university is in her debt.
My name is Terry Lynn Brewer, and I'm a member of this church. And this is where I met Janet. I will never forget, she introduced me to Lawrence and Garden. I don't have a lot of means for my own life, and like the tissues at the house, right? She was just a very bright person and very loving, and I know that she is here in this church now with me and all of us. Thank you very much.
My name is Douglas Liebergier. I'm a member of this church. I have the great distinction of having been Janet West's driver. A little while after, I won't stay up. A little while after she had her stroke, somebody said, "Well, Janet needs some rides from Brighton Gardens." I said, "Okay, I'll do it once in a while." Well, it turned out to be pretty much a weekly. I think I shared it with some other people. And those were the greatest times. Most of what's been said here today, I already knew, because she had told me. I don't know how many students, she told me once how many students actually lived with her, and I don't have that number right at the tip of my tongue, but it was a lot. So all of those things that were said are just so in my mind about her today, and what a wonderful talk her granddaughter gave, and telling her spirit and so on. So I really appreciated knowing it's the intellectual conversations that we had. I wish we had a recording of those in the rides from Brighton Gardens to First Unitarian Church and back. They were wonderful. I will cherish those days all my life.
Hi, my name is Doug Hagerty. I grew up at 5224 Jones with a lot of other young men and women my age. So I'm going to speak on behalf of many of them and just say that I grew up with Carol and Dave and half the side of the church. You know, she made a huge impact on my life, and we had a lot of neighborhood moms. My mom's here. But we ran in and out of a lot of houses, and about 20 of us on the block, and you know, she was one of our moms. And Sarita, I think probably the first time I ever smelled curry was 1979, maybe. I was in an Irish Catholic house across the street, and you know, so Janet opening up her home, Janet Mike introduced us all to a lot more of the world, and I also benefited from going to Metro for 2 years and graduating from the College of Business at UNO, so thank her for that too. So, but on behalf of my family, and I'm sure many others of my friends from Jones Street, we'll miss her and we love her.
Is there anyone else? Is there anyone who would like to say something and doesn't want to get up here, because we could bring this to you if you'd like? Okay. Want to get downstairs to the goodies. I think there's a feast down there. So these are a few of our thoughts and remembrances of Janet West. Whether or not we have succeeded in accurately portraying her life, it is surely, as Charles Gaines has written, no person can sum up the life of another. Life is too precious to be passed over with mere words which sound hollow. Rather, it must remain as it is remembered by those who loved and watched and shared. For such memories are alive, unbound by events of birth and death. And as living memories, we possess the greatest gift one person can give another. It is to each of you, then, that the living memories of Janet's life are committed. To your hearts and your minds go the enduring remembrances of this life. There will now be a period of musical reflection and silence. And I ask that each of you use these moments to remember Janet West as only you can. Let us enter this meditation reverently and with love. Amen. It's done. We have bidden loving farewell to Janet. Her body has been committed to the purifying flame, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We are profoundly glad that Janet West lived, and we are glad that we saw her face and felt the glow of her friendship and love. We cherish the memory of her words and deeds and character. Carrying her thus in our hearts, let us go now from this place of comfort and peace, assured that even in this time of loss and sorrow, life remains precious and good. May we also on this day rekindle in our hearts an appreciation for the gifts of life and other persons. Let us honor the life of Janet West by living ourselves more nobly and lovingly in the days ahead. As you return to the routines of your life, go in great peace, dear friends, and may an abiding peace go with you. Carol, I think Carol has an announcement about afterwards. We hope that you will be able to communicate some more stories in the celebration downstairs.
I will keep this brief. So, as all of you know, she traveled the world. So what we wanted to do in celebration of our mother's life, she asked us for an after party. So there is a party downstairs, and we are bringing you cuisine from Africa, from Nepal, from China, from Armenia. We've got a spread down there, so we want you to come downstairs. But we also spent some time and we are showcasing some of the little trinkets that she picked up along the way. And we encourage all of you, if you see something that resonates with your spirit, that you like it, you participated in that event, take it. Take it as a token, a memory of our mother. We want to share her with you because that's just who she was. So finally, my brother Mike has the closing words.
I just want to say thank you for being here, and we will leave you on with this song.
You sheltered me from harm, kept me warm, kept me warm. You gave my life to me, set me free, set me free. The finest years I ever knew, I had with you, and I would give anything I own, give up my life, my heart, my home. I would give everything I own just to have you back again. You taught me what it's all. You never said too much, but still you showed the way, and I knew from watching you. Nobody else could ever know the part of me that can't let go. there's someone you know, you're loving them so, but taking them all for granted. You may lose them one day, someone takes them away, and they don't hear the words you long to say. I would give anything I own, give up my life, my heart, my home. I would give everything I own just to have you back again, just to touch you once again.